with Firebase. The names of the rooms are syncing with Firebase. We even have a method to add a new room, but we don't have a button or a form or anything for a new room. So to do that, we're probably going to need a form, right? So that means a new component with a form in it. And we're going to need to show and hide that form at appropriate times. So let's start heading down that road. Show and hide that form at appropriate times. How do we know it's the appropriate time? What would you do? When someone clicks a button. Okay, let's make a button. So room list is here. Here's where we have rooms. How about just like right here alongside rooms? Let's have this super original idea and just put like a little circle with a plus sign to the right of that list of rooms. How's that? Super original idea. Okay, let's do it. So here we go. Here's this H2. I have rooms here. I think I'll put I think I'll put a div around this thing. I'll wrap this inside another div.
Should I put it below rooms or next to rooms?
I want it beside it.
Will it be long enough for you to like type in something?
Oh, just the button. Oh. Just the button. Yeah, to show the form that does it. Oh. Yeah, I'll actually show and hide the form. Now we could actually put the form like right underneath the list of names, but we won't. This is more interesting. So I'll put a button here. And I will go out to Font Awesome, look at just the free icons. Let's look for plus. Here we go. Here's a plus circle. It looks like an outlined one is only for pro users. So we'll copy this, paste that in there. Remember, your console will remind you, but class name, right? I bet this looks real bad. It does, but there it is, by golly. We can make it look less bad real quick. So I think I'm going to need some styles for this container and some styles for the button itself. The H2 is fine. So put class name equals CSS styles dot heading. There's no style for that yet, but I'm going to make one. And I'll say class name equals CSS styles dot button. It's the only button in the room list, so that's fine. I know I'm going to add an on click to this eventually, so go ahead and do that. All right, so heading and button. We've directed you before to the documentation for, or some documentation for Flexbox. There's the CSS tricks thing. There's actually a free video course from Westboss at flexbox.io called What the Flexbox. This is not a CSS class, but I'll walk you through a little bit of my thought process when I do something like this. So when I want two things to be side by side, by far the easiest way to lay that out is with Flexbox. The other time when I immediately reach for Flexbox is if I need two things to be vertically aligned, because vertical alignment without Flexbox is a living nightmare. So the heading that contains both the H2 and the div, or the H, whatever it was, and the div, I will say display flex, so I can use Flexbox. Heck, let's see what that does. Now they're side by side, right? But they're squished together. So to spread them apart, justify content. Justify content and align items are the two things you use all the time with Flexbox. Justify content tells it how they're spread apart horizontally, and align items how they are aligned vertically, assuming you're doing it by rows, which Flexbox is by default. You can have flex direction column, in which case those axes switch. But aligning things in the other axis isn't nearly as hard to begin with. But sometimes I use it that way. So justified content, space between is what I say. So that means any extra space that's there by the time you've put both of these things in there should go between the two of them. There we go. Now they're far apart. I want to make sure they're vertically aligned, so I say align items center. And right now, there you go. Now the button's just ugly. So that's progress. Yeah.
So like, to justify content at the center, it doesn't actually move it to the center?
It moves them to the center left to right, but not up and down. So align items to get them to line up and down. Yeah. All right, so the button, I want to get rid of all that kind of default buttony stuff. So I want border 0. It always puts a border on there. It gave me a background color that I don't want, so background color transparent. Puts an outline on there that I don't want. That's the thing you get if you like start clicking it. It puts that blue around it. Outline 0, padding 0. Just make it a lot less buttony. Padding? So padding and margin are both space around something. The difference is which one is inside the border. So when you look, and you can tell this pretty easily by using the inspector here. Here's the box model. Here's the actual element. Here's the padding. Here's the border. Here's the margin. Now I have none of any of these things on this particular element. But that's the way you do when you're setting it up. The padding goes inside the border. The margin is outside. So padding, to me, that's still inside the element. And it's just kind of putting some breathing room in there. Margin is actually space between two different elements. Unintuitively, the default box model, the width of an element only includes the element itself. It doesn't include the padding. Logically, it seems like width should include the element, the padding, and the border, everything but the margin. But that is not the default. But there is a rule you can put in to make that the case. Box spacing, let's see. Box spacing border box is that. So button, okay, that's better, but it's black on super dark gray, which isn't very readable. Color. So most of my stuff in the sidebar is like, it's white but translucent. So I'm going to do that again. RGBA. So 255, 255, 255 gives me white. And I'll say 40% opacity. So it's going to be effectively a light gray. It's too darn small too. So font size, 1 rem, at least be the default font size for the page. It's even smaller than that. There we go. I like that. Now I want to get the pointer button when I hover over it. So cursor, pointer. There we go. And now I'd like to have this smooth little hover effect. So since I am using Aphrodite, I can say :hover. If this were real CSS, by the way, what you would do is you would have a separate rule that says button :hover. Anyway, since we didn't do a whole lot of real CSS, that's how you would do that in real CSS. So CSS and JavaScript using Aphrodite, it's like this. So when I hover over it, I want it to be full-blown white. There we go. But I don't want it to be all on immediately. I want it to be kind of smooth like that. Woo! Yes, nice. So for that, I put a transition on here. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, CSS animation, I suggest you Google it or look on CSS tricks or whatever. So I say color is the property that I'm transitioning. I want it to happen over 1/4 of a second, 0.25 seconds. And then you can tell it to like not actually do it linearly. I can say something like ease out, which means it'll start changing colors kind of fast, but then it'll slow down right at the end. Ease out of the animation. Yes. Yes. Which in 1/4 of a second is pretty dang subtle. If we did it over the course of 1 second, So we ain't got time for that. Better get it over in a quarter second.
Yes.
If you really wanted to tweak that easing thing, that is what you would want to do. You want to make it super slow. Okay, so anyway, now we got all the effects, right? That's great. It doesn't do a darn thing, though, right? So what we want it to do is tell it to show and hide a form, right? We haven't made the form yet, but this button is going to either show that form or hide that form. So how will we determine whether that form, basically, what should the button actually do? Well, that's closer. So, like, we never say, take this other thing on the page and do something with it, right? What we do is, like, change state, and then it just takes care of the other part for us, right? So we should have some Boolean that keeps track of whether to show the form. Get what I'm saying? So let's put in state on room list, show room form, and we'll initialize that as false. Add a couple methods to change that. I'll say show room form. That's an arrow function that just does this dot set state. Show room form true. Hide room form. This dot set state. Show room form false. Yeah.
Probably answer this within like the next 10 minutes, but I'm imagining you hovering over the plus button and a form shows up, and then you move your mouse to the form to click the form and instantly.
I'm not going to do it on hover. That's cruel. We're going to make it on click.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
we're doing all the hover stuff, that's why I
Oh, no, that's purely for aesthetics. Yeah, if you hover over this button, the form appears. If you try to actually use the form, it goes away. Yeah, no.
thought we were going towards.
As hilarious as that would be, I don't think that user experience is great. So what the button's actually going to do is call show room form, right? So here's the button. On click. It's not a submit button, so I don't need to prevent default or anything. Is this a class? Yes. So this dot show room form. No parens. And let's see if it does the thing. So React DevTools, search for room list. Here's my state. Show room form is false. Click my button. It's true. Okay. That's all I wanted it to do. It's going to go super true. It'll know you really mean. No, I don't. Why you wouldn't think to click that button to hide a form. So we'll do that another way. So that should, yeah, make a cancel button. So let's make the actual dang form now. So new component time. It's been a while. Room form.js. So we're making another form, so it's a pretty good guess that this is going to have state, right? So I will go ahead and import both React and component from React. And it'll be a class, room form, extends component. We'll need to return some JSX. Probably something with a class of room form. Don't forget to export default room form.
Doesn't that need a render as well?
Yep, I am a big dork, thank you. Unrelated, but in case you were wondering. There you go. Yep, we need a render method. It's a class component. Mm-hmm.
So our list of files is getting pretty long. What are your thoughts on like looking at class, like similar classes in one file?
Yeah, that's a thing that I usually do if it's going to be very big. Like for right now, it's not causing us a whole lot of pain because Fuzzy Finder is really fast. Hopefully you are all using that. If you're all trying to do this every time, yeah, this is inhumane. So Command P brings this up, or Control P. Type. Have you not been noticing that I'm switching files really fast? Okay. Okay. So, okay. Well, no, I mentioned it once, and then no one ever asked again. So I thought, oh, they all got this the first time. No. So this is a very good thing to know. So Command P, and then you type any part of the file name. So if I just type form, I get just room form and message form.
If you want to get a part of something like a file of content, can you do that?
What?
Like, do you want to find a piece of something instead of a file, by file?
Shift Command F. Every place that username appears in any file. Did you ever think to go like edit, find in files or anything? Okay. Okay. Anyway, yeah, please use that. Don't don't use the sidebar to find files. What am I trying to accomplish here? I'm trying to make the form, right? Okay. I got too many files open. Okay. So here's the form. Let's put an actual form in there probably. Don't need an action. I need two inputs, one for the name, one for the description. I'll put them each inside a paragraph. I'll have a label for each. So HTML4 name. Notice it's not just 4, it's HTML4. So label 4 in HTML is HTML4 in JSX. Because 4, as in for loop, this is JavaScript. Even though it looks like HTML, JSX is really just JavaScript dressed up like HTML. So room name. Here's my input. Type equals text. Name equals name. I know sooner or later I'm going to be adding on clicks and all kinds of stuff to this. So I'll go ahead and make it easy on myself. Another one. Label for description. Input type equals text. Name equals description. Oops. Then I'm going to have a couple of buttons. I'm going to have a cancel button and an actual save button. So I'll put those inside a div. Button, cancel. And that one I'll make sure is a type of button, not submit. Then I'll put another one. Type equals submit. That button will say, don't just ever say submit. That's useless. Make it a verb that tells what it actually does. So create room, yeah. Always advisable. I think capitalized probably. Okay. So there's our component to start with. So we need to import that in room list. Import room form from /room form. And then we need to decide whether to show it or not, right? Based on this .state.show room form. So inside render, we could just use a plain old if this time. If this .state.show room form, return room form, else return all this nonsense. This is a really, really big component now. Real world, I would almost certainly refactor some more of this stuff out of here. This is way too big a component. See if it works. Heck yeah, it does. Heck yeah, it does. Yeah, that's okay. It's okay for right now. We haven't done that yet. So we have show room form. We've already written hide room form, right? So if we want to make the cancel button do that, we need to pass that down as a prop, right? We're old pros at this. So here's room form. Let's just go ahead and put this on multiple lines before things get out of control. Hide room form equals this dot hide room form. And inside root form JS, here's my cancel button. Oops. On click. Yeah. On click equals this dot props dot hide room form. No parens. Click, 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 click. Yeah. What link? Yes. Yay. Just to quit freaking us out, let's get rid of those bogus messages. Let's get rid of general food random. Our original messages from long ago. So general, let's talk about our favorite generals. Random. The bub picks. Yep. Show the form, hide the form. Show the form, hide the form. I like it. Show and hide the room, the new room form. Then we'll make the form actually work. But this feels like an accomplishment already.